Not we? Yeah. Okay.
We're on our way. So we're recording. Right.
So the recording is on now. Kia ora, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. This afternoon, we have two fantastic speakers that will be speaking to us about their research project. We will pass the time now to the first speaker, Leeana. Leeana is a colleague of mine here at the University of Waikato. Yeah, you are doing your, yes. Well, we have worked with Leeana as well. Currently on another project as well. So it's a privilege, Leeana, to welcome you as our guest presenter this afternoon. So we'll pass the time now to you, Leeana.
Kia ora tātou. Kia ora no tātou katoa. Tuatahi e tukumihi ana kia tātou katoa. Kia tauna makitanga kia tātou katoa. It is a privilege to, you start something, say, in 2017, and then to be able to share and talk about it. So, katoa o Aotearoa, koutou katoa e tukumihi ana. Leeana Herewini he uringo no Ngāpuhi, and in 2017, when I started the project Beta Plus working in Pāngaro. So we were keen in 2017 a TLRI, a teacher year, which could help given us.
Sorry, Leeana.
A Māori medium context, so I really want to...
Sorry, Leeana, we're having sound issues. Leeana, we can't hear you very well.
Okay. Is this better now?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I think it might be a bandwidth issue, so we're going to turn off our videos. For those of us who are on videos, we'll just turn off our video so that it will give you more leeway. Please proceed, Leeana. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So just to locate, the context is Māori medium, and that the delivery and curriculum delivery is all in te reo Māori. The kōrero that we positioned, mākua no e hanga tōku nei whare. I will build, and it comes from Kingi Tāwhiao. It's a tongi kura, which is a prophetic saying, unique and special to Waikato Tainui. And mākua no e hanga, I will build my own house, which makes reference to building from trees that are not necessarily known for their potential. So in modern, how we then rework the interpretation of the tongi kura for this research, it's up to our research partners to determine ways to advance the aspirations for their tamariki, mokopuna and community. And as taking part of this responsibility, we couldn't find yet any research available in Māori medium, in Pāngaro mathematics, and or regarding a modern learning. So our early work, we talk about a modern learning environment, a Māori medium modern learning environment. And after sitting for 2 years, 2018 and 2019, we developed a concept of what we think MLE, ILE, FLE, a puna mātauranga kiritoa. Just to give you a bit of context too, Waikato Tainui use double vowels, and Ngārewa, who is unable to be here, as a Waikato Tainui member, it's been really important for her to be using the double vowels. So that's a tension you might see. I use macrons mostly, but I think if any, we conceptualize an MLE, ILE, FLE as a puna, which is a spring or a source. The mātauranga speaks to knowledge or education, and kiritoa is a notion of resilience or being strong. So we saw in sitting in a, with our research partners, 106 children a year, 4 to 6 MLE. At times you needed to be resilient. So we conceptualized for this one kura, the apuna mātauranga kiritoa is a way in which an MLE or ILE, and that involves quality teaching and learning, and our focus was in Pāngaro mathematics and demanding a high level of self-management and resilience from both kaiako and akonga. So in 2017, some of the key influences for us then, our reading of literature, we were interested in personalised learning, we were interested in choice and flexibility. We weren't as wedded to notions of what technology looked like, but as that evolved for us when often akonga or children would tell us how much more important. We were also in 2017 quite more interested in the space and how the space worked. However, for kaiako in the modern learning, they were interested in kind of just managing teaching and learning and not as wedded to the space. Our research questions for the TLRI, and I'll just give you some time to read. And the kind of research in 2018, we really, Ngārewa and I both sat in the MLE as it was then, and we just watched, observed, and we were a part of the program. So just to contextualise, Te Reo Māori, 106 akonga, 6 kaiako, and we did these kind of research activities in that first year. We did an online survey with 99 students in Te Reo Māori. Again, 99 is quite a large sample for us. And we did what we call a set of illustrations where we asked akonga to draw a picture if learning maths was like, what would it be? And often they would draw a lolly or a rugby or netball. In 2019, we talked with the kaiako to identify a feature for focus. So the feature could have been using context and teaching Pāngaro, and in this case, 3 teachers chose investigative tasks and 2 teachers chose context as a feature. So then we had planning hui, and the teachers delivered, and we observed, and we did debrief hui, and we had an online survey again, had focus group, a group with the interview with the tūmaki, and a full debrief after teaching. So this is the kind of the analysis, thematic analysis, we did kind of focused on 3 areas, and it was mahi ngātahi, encouraging collaboration. I guess if I was what to take from this kind of kōrero today is, what is the same or different? What would be the same or different, to be thinking about that. The other kind of thinking to take from this, it would be, or what does your MLE, ILE really represent? Is it a puna, mātauranga, kiritoa? But the mahi ngātahi, encouraging collaboration, like many researchers say, the deprivatisation of practice, the sitting and sharing with teachers, that those are key ideas of the collaboration between kaiako. So the kura became a MLE at that point to share strengths, so that the expertise didn't have to know everything. The school leader was very clear on we need to share practice, we need to work to strengths, and we kind of need to reduce the workload. And to further contextualise this in this community, not only was teaching and learning, goals of making sure that the teachers were often involved with their marae, and the demand across their life, this idea of working to your strengths became quite important. Between akonga, learners told us more and more often they wanted to work with others, so that became a really critical idea later on, is that akonga were able to work with others. So one of the key findings, the report is available on TLRI website, so I encourage you to go and read to get the more detail of it, and you'll see some kind of pictures of the nature of the puna mātauranga kiritoa, and how different, or is it the same to what many of you are working with. The next finding was fostering productive learning pathways. So the feature in 2019, investigative tasks. So teachers designed and created tasks. Akonga could choose the task that they would work with, and it might take 2 lessons, it might take 3 or 4 lessons. Now this may have been a shift from how the lessons were structured. So again, the puna mātauranga kiritoa is an L shape. You have 106 children, and then we offer investigative tasks, and you get to choose which tasks you want to do. So the offering of choice and of the tasks, we saw engagement come up. It does require self-management though, and managing learners and managing themselves when they have choice. If akonga are choosing a task to work with, you then have a range of curriculum levels, and the mixed ability grouping, which had been a shift from ability groups. Kaiako became a little bit concerned with, how do I teach this if this is the gap and the problem? No surprises to many of you. Managing noise for learning in a PMK ILE is important, and managing noise is important because in Pāngira we were promoting that you need to be able to talk about your learning, and so when you're encouraging talk but yet there is no effective sound barrier or mechanism, then that becomes a challenge for kaiako and akonga. So the consideration around spaces and breakout rooms and headphones is important, and it has to be managed because we wanted children talking about their learning. We wanted akonga talking about their learning. Hangaru matihiko, prioritising digital technology. So in kura we found over the study, often the technology was used for fast finishes. They were often in English, and this became a tension for some akonga who did not have the English ability to work with the app or work with the tool. And then another challenge was often the availability of apps in Te Reo Māori. This became an area of learning for Ngārewa because children akonga want hangaro, and they want it, and they would tell you why they want it and when they want it. And in Māori medium, it is an area that we still need to be working on. So implications for practice, no surprises. Collaboration is a significant element. We would promote the use of investigative tasks in modern learning, PMK, but then you need to be thinking about how you manage noise and promote discourse for productive learning. Changing the way that you group to mixed ability, that might cause you some problems. And of course, and for Māori medium, for kura, thinking about what this hangaro matihiko. So show and tell, potential to use show and tell technologies. We need to be able to explore those with kura. It was a privilege. It is always a privilege to work in kura, or in the kura, to work in research. And this is an emerging field, and it feels good to be able to talk about it. And if we locate it back into mākua no e hanga, it is up to me or up to our community to build a way forward. So I think I'll finish now and maybe take questions.
Feel free, anyone, to add questions into the chat, and I'll kind of coordinate those and ask Leeana a question. So take a few minutes now to type.
Yeah, but thank you, Leeana. That was a
Yes.
very fascinating study. We really appreciate that you're sharing that with us, because we can imagine that teaching maths under those conditions would need quite careful consideration. Do we have any questions from the
I
chat
think the
so
questions
far?
are coming. They're still
Okay.
coming. Kia ora, says Joe Fletcher. Could you please tell me where to get the report copy from? There you go, Leeana. Leeana, unmute.
Leeana, could you just unmute?
I just typed in the chat. Oh, hi, Chris. Yeah, if you Google Mākua Noi Hanga and on TLRO website, it should come up.
It's great.
The title of, yeah.
We can put the
Kia ora,
link in the
Chris.
chat later as well. There we are.
Oh,
Leon,
thanks, Leon,
thank you, Leon.
for being proactive. Very good.
Other questions? Type them in.
The scaffolding of reo. So that is, yeah, that's a great question in terms of there is a commitment to high quality reo Māori. So without a doubt, the tension is if technology is important, but high quality language proficiency in mathematics and te reo is important, there's an immediate tension. So the teachers are doing a lot of work orally. Yeah, they're doing a lot of work orally. And it would be a dreaming piece to see how we can be using technology. So the building and scaffolding, okay. Some of the teachers are very skilled at scaffolding language, have been teaching in Māori medium for 10, 15 years. So they're very skilled at knowing the vocab, presenting the vocab in a range of ways. There is a reliance on oral. We would, telling is a talking. There is probably a bit more reliance, and we need to think about that.
Thank you. There's a question from Judy Bailey. Can you hear me? There's a bit of feedback. It says, did you and Ngārewa notice differences regarding your second finding, fostering productive pathways, between small cell classes and the larger class setting?
What's compounded in this PMK is 106 children. So the dynamics of space, children, teachers, you just don't get that in a single cell. So we write a statement that it is different because the dynamics of 106 kids moving, 6 kaiako working together, it's the complexity, the way in which, so children would go to English, you've got to know which group's going to English. You've got to know which group's staying. You've got to know, there's so much to be aware of with managing. Ngā whanaketanga or national standards had also been removed at the time. And so it really challenged people to think, how do we report achievement? What's important and how do we report pāngaro achievement and what becomes important? And so those are furthermore discussions to collaborate. Getting 6 kaiako together was a challenge, some people would say too.
Thank you. Katrina says, super interesting. Lots of the things you highlighted are areas that English medium teachers are accessing PLD for. How do you find this PLD need in the Māori medium? Was part of your project providing PLD for the kaiako?
Mm.
We tried to stay in Pāngaro, and so we were interested in how children learn mathematics. Inevitably, we supported kaiako. We tried to be two really good researchers in terms of not trying to sway too much without, we tried to really let, and when you see 106 kids and you see 6 kaiako, and you can sometimes see tensions and not see tensions. It wasn't, we were a part of we became part of the teams as well. And so I think I've shifted. We didn't do PLD. We definitely tried just to be, this is a research project, and without a doubt we supported teachers. We don't want to claim, it wasn't like PLD like this and like that, which was hard for me as a PLD provider. I had to, that's not what you're going to do. Let this unfold in a way that is meaningful for the kura.
Thank you. A question from Dwayne. Kia ora, Leeana. Was there a link seen, anecdotally or otherwise, between the MLE and the lift in achievement in Pāngaro?
Kia ora, Grace. Kia ora, Dwayne. What a hard question. Hard because how we're describing achievement and how we're going to say what it is. If a measure is engagement and self-management, absolutely. Ngārewa and I in the full report say we stayed away from measuring achievement in terms of stage gain or performance in curriculum because another research project needs to do that. And we wanted to, as a PMK, as an emerging way of thinking about teaching and learning, collaboration is important, fostering learning pathways is important, and they're all important. And we wanted to do more around achievement. But if self-management, engagement are measures of achievement, we definitely saw that. So just to contextualize, at year 3 transitioning into year 4 are still learning how to manage themselves, and that was one of the key transition points for many of the 8-year-olds is there's 105 other people in this space. How do I manage myself in this space? And some did that incredibly well, and others required support to do it. And that's why the kiritoa notion, the notion of resilience and kind of knowing what you're about as a learner evolves over time. That's what it was a privilege to watch that. As you're a 7-year-old becoming an 8-year-old with 105 others, and some of the year 6s are big. They're huge, physically really big.
Thank you. I think we might have time for one more question, and here comes one from Diane. Kia ora, Leeana. Love the focus on collaboration and self-management. How do you measure this other than observation?
We tried, thank you Diane and Dwayne for the tricky questions. So the teachers talked to us that akonga managing themselves was a real challenge, especially in transition at year 4. So we tried then to use focus groups and or online surveys and or illustrations as mechanisms for akonga to be able to tell us that they weren't tidy fits. I have some funny stories I could tell you, and kind of one of the stories akonga managed, there was never fights, there was never chairs thrown, and those measures of, in which they're not really, but yeah, and I want to hint at other things, the way in which the whole kura is run. We were looking at one PMKILE, which I think we didn't in this project talk about the whole school values, ways of being. We talked about Pāngato learning for 106 kids. Well, yeah, for some of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much, Leeana. We have one final comment.
We have Kapai from Diane. Focus groups provides a way forwards and maybe shifts as well. So I think now, Elaine.
Yes, so thank you so much, Leeana, for that fascinating study. I'm sure we can all agree that that was very useful for all of us. Can I just
a round of virtual applause?
Yes, can I just invite people to give you a virtual applause?
There are other questions I can see coming in, but we will perhaps try to answer. Oh yes, look, some clever people are doing virtual applause on Zoom. They're the clever ones. We'll answer any more questions that have come in perhaps online and put them up on the recording as well. So thank you very much, Leeana.
And also please feel free to contact Leeana directly if you've got further questions that you'd like to pursue with her. And for those of you who have been experiencing sound issues, we do apologize. I think it's just the nature of having so many people online. So can I just encourage all of us to just turn off our videos and mute ourselves so that we can give the speakers more leeway to work with. But thank you so much, Leeana. It is now my privilege to hand the time over to our second set of speakers, Emily Nelson as well as Maurice Rehu. Welcome.
Whiti ora ki te whai o ki te o marama, whiti ki runga, whiti ki raro. He ngungu ki te poatu e nunu ki te ngāpū. Tītaha ki te neitaha, tītaha ki te neitaha, tihei mauri ora. Tēnei te mihi atu ki o koutou e whānau mai, e ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā waka o te motu, tēnei te mihi, tēnei te mihi, tēnei te mihi. Tēnā koe, te mihi nui ki a koe Leeana mō tō mahi, he mahi tika, he mahi pono, he mahi aroha mua mātou tamariki Māori katoa. Tēnei te mihi atu ki ngā kai whakahaere, tēnā koe Elaine and Susanna mō tō awhine ki tēnei kaupapa, he kaupapa pai. Ko Maurice Rehu ahau, no rangi tāne me taranaki ahau, engari I tupuaki au I Wainganui o te whānau o Ngāti Kahununi ki Heritaunga. Heritaunga Haukinui, Heritaunga Ararau, Heritaunga Te Haro o te Kahu, Heritaunga Takoto no tihei kahu.
Kia ora. Ka mihi nui kia koutou, ko Emily Nelson tōku ingoa. I'm Emily Nelson, I work at EIT, which you can probably see in the background, and I'm the academic leader of the Bachelor of Teaching primary degree, and I'd really like to say thank you very much to Elaine and Suzanne and Leeana. So far it's been fascinating to engage with you and talk with you. I'm just going to check, are we all good there?
Elaine, we need you to be a little bit louder.
Emily.
Sorry, Emily, I called you Elaine. Emily and Maurice, it's a little bit tricky to hear, so I don't know if you can sit a bit closer or just you need to be a little bit louder. Probably others are experiencing that as well.
Thank you.
So we need to bring the teacher voice, is that better?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Teacher voice.
Very cool. Okay, so we've titled our presentation today, Cultivating Māori Student Success Through Socio-Spatial Design. This is a project that we engaged in together as co-researchers. I was the researcher from EIT, and Maurice at the time was the principal of Richmond School. So this is a project that a case study that is was trying to capture the richness of a development that was happening in the school, and we have tried to stay really true to the kaupapa, the experimentation, the journey of the teachers, community and students who are involved. And I'm trying to, so we'll just leave this up on the screen for a minute. This is a mihi for our project that was gifted to us from the Board of Trustees at the conclusion of our research to bless and give us the all clear to present the findings. As long as we recognise that what we're doing is really putting some light structure around some really authentic work that the Richmond school community was engaged in. So our project ended up being a case study, an instrumental case study, and we really wanted to find out to do with, Richmond School is a really special place, and you would go in and you would see this huge excitement in the kids and the teachers. There was always something new going on, and there were always a lot of changes being made, but with this kind of fervour and excitement towards a main kaupapa, which was supporting Māori students to achieve as Māori. You can see there, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, you can see the outline of the school. The role at the time was a reasonably small school. It's in Napier, and my involvement from the IoT perspective with the school was that in a course that I taught with Lee Johnson, who I know is in the audience, we would take our student teachers to Richmond School because at that time Richmond were leading in the digital technology space, integrating digital technologies. They were an Apple Distinguished School. You could read about them on TKI, so there were a lot of good things going on there, and we really wanted to capture what they were doing for their kids.
During that time while I was principal at Richmond, we talk about the rich kids, the rich staff and the rich whānau. And so we want to mihi atu ki marae nui whānau for the support during that time, and this was just capturing that snapshot. But during that time we had a number of passionate educators and whānau that believed in our rich kids achieving to their best. So when Emily had an opportunity for us to collaborate and work together and look at the research to help reflect back some of the changes that we were making, and to be able to capture that to share not only with our staff, our students and our whānau, but for others who are interested in pursuing a journey similar to ours.
So we've talked about this as a snapshot of a case study that captures what was happening at Richmond School between 2015 and 2017, because that was the time period where the teachers, the whole community seemed to take it up a gear. And there was a really established culture at Richmond of staff and community developing together. The teachers would be off to ULearn, they'd be off to professional development. If you asked them why they were doing something in the school, they would link back to Bronfenbrenner, they'd link back to Banduro's social learning theory. There was a lot of really explicit theorising of practice in the school and through into practice. And around about 2016, like 1 minute the school was organised within conventional classrooms, and the next minute it was an ILE, and it was a retrofit. And for example, in one of the blocks where there were 3 classrooms, the cloak bay was then a green screen space. So, and there were walls taken out in between. So we thought we really need to document this, and so as part of this culture, I talked with the staff about them being involved and talking about their practice, and the kids being involved to talk about what was happening in the school, and that together Maurice and I would analyse that and share that back, so it would become themselves reflected back to themselves, which could then inform further development. So we came up with a plan, we came up with an interview protocol, but really all we needed was to say, tell me about the development of the Richmond school development, and people were just away. So this is really some of the things that we're going to talk to you now, the things that we found.
So we've done a lot of that research around some of those Western philosophies. We went as a whole team to Te Ara Whakamana in 2015 to Nigel and Susan through Mana Potential at the time. And as a team, when we saw the way that the framework that they were using was about enhancing the mana of students, that helped us shift and move from Bronfenbrina Brina as our main source to looking at Pūrākau, Whakatauki and Ngā Atua Māori, so that it reflected our rich kids from the Nui. It changed the way that we looked at things, it changed the way that we view teaching and learning, but also our learning spaces. And we talked about that the learning spaces need to come alive with the essence of Ngā Atua to support our students to be their best, to be rich kids.
So that led the staff on a journey to ground their learning environment, their ILE design, to the foundation of Te Ao Māori. And the thing that captured me as a researcher right from the start was that the entire school was then reconceptualised as an ILE. So rather than having a school that still had conventional single cell teaching and an ILE or a couple of ILEs, the entire school was reconceptualised as an ILE in relation to the whakatauki ko te manu I kai ana I te mero nōna te ngāhere, ko te manu I kai ana I te mātauranga nōna te ao. And the students were conceptualised as manu on a journey, birds on a journey through education within the 3 interconnected learning pods in the school.
And with that, the students weren't necessarily in their year group levels with their cohorts. Students could move up and down each of the learning spaces according to their needs, where they were at, social, emotional developments, their curiosity. So there was so much flexibility, and that's why the whole school was seen as the ILE or the mod learning or flexible learning environment, because each space that was set up was around the students to be able to have tino rangatiratanga, lead their learning, the agents of their learning.
So this is an artist's impression. That's actually my interpretation from the interviews that we did with different staff members, boards of trustees, and with students. So the 3 learning pods were Te Kohanga, that held the babies of the school, in the nest within the forest, Te Ngāhere, which was very much grounded in relation to Papatuānuku and Anganui, and through into the senior school, Te Ao Marama, and I've positioned that at the top of the canopy, you know, that they were positioned to own the world. So all the design decisions that happen in the school were related to this whakatauki and Te Ao Māori and Te Ara Whakamana, mana enhancement as a foundation. So each of those 3 pods, learning pods, also had different activity zones within them that were doing the job of connecting the manu, the students, to Te Ao Māori, to culture, identity and language, and the different spaces within each of the activity pods promoted a different kind of thinking, a different kind of working and interaction. Do you want to say more about that?
As we were setting these spaces up, they weren't created by design. They were responding to students' needs, responding to students' interests, responding to students' curiosities, whānau. So as the students developed in terms of their aspirations, where they wanted, and whānau was sharing, so did the spaces change, so did the involvement of each of these areas and how they wanted to support the learning for the students. And then this was just within the classroom spaces themselves, because then it flowed outside and moved between the physical learning spaces.
So having spent a long time, you know, interviewing and just, you know, analysing this over the last couple of years, a little bit like Leeana was saying earlier, we've boiled it down and to these principles that really put to work, they interconnect, they cultivate Māori student success as brought to life at Richmond. So there was a really strong commitment from all the Board of Trustees and the teachers that we need to do what our kids need, we need to respond to who our kids are. And a really nice quote from our data was, it was the kids. There's some massive kids, vivacious, they were bubbly, they were excited, they were energetic, they were caring, they were passionate. I say passionate because they get really, not emotional, but the things really strongly affiliated with or connected to. You could tell they had a bit of drive in that, even if sometimes that was a little misguided. So the fact that also the majority of the students in the school were Māori, there was a really strong commitment on the part of the school staff to building connection and identity through Te Ao Māori. We've got Māori kids, Māori communities, Samoan kids. Russell Bishop's work, you know, what's good for Māori is good for all, what's good for Pākehā is not good for all. It was always the tale. Even though Richmond was a really successful school in terms of being Apple distinguished and very innovative for their students, no matter how much people did around their teaching practice, we still had this big tail and it wasn't changing. So over time, it's like you said earlier, it wasn't designed, but over time, the look to Te Ao Māori for guidance became stronger.
And that just helped us as a whānau, as a staff, as a community to continue to build. And when we saw the changes in the way that our kids carried themselves and attendance and the number of standouts that we were getting, we could see that we were on the right path. And if we carried on with this, then each of our rich kids, and I keep referring to them as rich kids, could do the things that they were passionate about, and their whānau came along on the journey with us.
And participants gave us a really nice story around when the ILE was unveiled, and it really was, all the doors were locked, the kids arrived for school for the year and they couldn't get in, and the teachers met everyone in the grounds and then built up this really strong sense of excitement, and then the doors were opened and the kids could go in and their whānau could go in. And there was also a really nice story from a participant about a boy who'd come back to the school from being somewhere else, and the teacher had said to him, we were thinking of you when we designed these spaces. We really thought, what would you like, how would you best like to work? So in the diagram, in the photo that's included there, you can see the mural of Tamanui Te Rā that the senior kids had painted. The connect and the spaces are quite open, and what we found from the data was that the personalised learning approach that was operationalised in the ILE, as well as the messages to do with the activity zones, to do with Tamanui Te Rā being where you go when you want to spark insight and when you want to innovate. We started to see those coming through in the talk of the students themselves, in terms of themselves as learners and their learning. Where are we going? Do we need to move on? Okay, moving on. Do you want to talk about? Yeah, so probably that was for me, that's the key impact, was listening to the students talk about themselves as learners by referencing the valued messages that were kind of encoded in the spaces. My favourite working space is Ranganui, because we get to do making here and imagining stuff that we want to make, and we get to bake and make because we have our own little kitchen. Tamanui Te Rā is my favourite space. It's an imagination room where you can imaginate what you want. So spontaneously the students were picking up the language of the spaces.
I think this impact in the data shows here just on some of those things, and again we just want to remind you this was during that period of the research that we're able to just draw some of those conclusions from at that place and at that time.
Okay, so now we wanted to just do a little bit of a shift because Maurice had a promotion at the end of 2017 to
a change.
A change.
Yep, from one whānau to another whānau in Hiritonga. So went from Maraenui in Napier across to Irongate and Paharakeke Flaxmere. And some of the things we talked about were what concepts travelled to the new space.
Mm. And the thing I think we really wanted to make clear is they weren't taken from Richmond to Irongate. There was this reciprocity between the two schools in terms of what would it look like to keep deepening these concepts in the ILE and pedagogy.
So we're able to, with those whanaungatanga relationships, send a number of our teachers, our team from Irongate across to Richmond and to see some of the developments that we'd progressed in the previous 2 years. There was an opportunity for some of the staff to come and share at workshops from Richmond to Irongate on some of the work that they've been doing. And these all started to then spark curiosity in our team at Irongate. And mana enhancement was one of the frameworks that I took as a starting point for us in Irongate in our journey going forward. And so that, with Te Ara Whakamana Mana Enhancement, we're able to open up those reciprocity relationships with Richmond because Richmond had already been in that space. And this was an opportunity for the Irongate staff to have a look and see what else is out there, other ways of operating. So at that time, Irongate was single cell teaching space. And so by opening up these opportunities to go across and visit, to listen to a number of the staff that were there at the time share their work, it gave us an opportunity to then look at Irongate as our whānau and what could we do, what could we be looking at to support Te Ara Whakamana, rangatiratanga liberation for our students here. Building on all the fantastic work that had been done by previous principals, previous whānau, previous staff and tamariki, and then what else, or how else could we add value to the journey. And so just in this part, you can see I've got the concepts there, but in blue is where we're currently at in terms of at Irongate. And there's been a lot deeper, we're able to take, because we'd had that research, been through a number of things at Richmond, be able to look a little bit deeper for our whānau at Irongates. And so we're able to see those same principles come across but be deepened in Te Ao Māori, because there's already a strong base in Flaxmere of how things were operating, a strong whānau base at Irongate. So I was looking at how can we complement, how can whānau share what's important, how else can our tamariki have that opportunity to have those conversations around what's important aspirationally.
So that's where we're at, and I think you'll agree the oh, their alarm's gone off for us to stop now, but massive kids, massive community. Maureen Moore, who was linked to the mihi earlier, said at a presentation once, the community has schools, and one of those schools was Richmond, which was really flipped the whole idea of the school having a community. Community had a school, and this we've hopefully shared part of the aspiration, how that was brought alive for the manu of that school. So thank you very much.
Tēnei te mihi atu ki o koutou.
Yeah, thanks very much, Emily and Maurice. That was a fascinating study. Can I just encourage folks to type your questions for Emily as well as Maurice in the chat box, please? Okay, so while folks are doing that, we just want to say thank you once again. We really like the idea of the flexibility, cutting across different aspects and different dimensions and getting that whole community voice into play. Yeah, so we have a first question for you, Emily.
Okay,
We'll pass
so
the time to
First question from
Suzanne.
Chris. How did you identify what success as Māori looked like as opposed to the criteria received from Te Aoma Tauranga Pākehā?
Good question. It came from whānau. It came from our marae, it came from our kui o kaumātua, it came from our community, our whānau, and our kids. So we're able to start from, most important, our whānau.
And do you want to talk a little bit about how you did that to start with?
So 100% whānau engagements, which would used to be parent-teacher interviews, we would hold them over the whole year. And we would have any time, any space, whenever you were available. We had our teaching team go and visit whānau, where there was some whānau that had 3 students that were in 3 different learning spaces, would have usually 3 teachers. One teacher would go and represent the kura and take kai and have those conversations wherever whānau needed. It meant we stayed late, it meant we started early, it meant whānau teachers waited in the car park. It meant that we were at sports, we were at the local church, we were at the marae, to make sure that every whānau had the opportunity to voice what was important. So you've got to take all both the positive and the negative feedback, get told off, the kuia tell you off, you're not doing this right, so we go back and try again. And that's where we got our successes, and that what enabled us to focus on where we need to put our time and energy.
Oh, that's great. There's lots of comments coming through. Thank you. There's lots of comments coming through saying tino pai. So well done. A comment from Leon. Great work. What is the link to the Scion spatial reference? Oh, we can enter that one later. Perhaps there's that's a reference link. So I'll scroll down and find some more. Have you published your research yet? And if so, let us know where it is. That's we can get to that one. Are there any other questions? So we'll put those 2 questions about the research and the link. Are there any other questions? No, it's a question. No, it's a question.
Yeah.
Okay, Leon. What is the link to the Scion? Oh, the link. Scion spatial.
Oh, the socio-spatial?
Socio.
I knew you.
Oh,
were
socio.
I knew you were going to ask me that. I was thinking.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
You understand the question better than I do, then.
Yeah. So bloody spell check. Yeah. So I really think there, Leon, you know how space is socially constructed, that the way that the school intentionally developed their physical spaces, and if you look at Maui whakako, kura whakako, talking about important cultural messages introduced into spaces, I think there was this is a really intentional example of that. And the reason why I pulled on some of the student quotes, because they weren't asked specifically about the socio-spatial, but they drew on those messages that were in the spaces to talk about themselves as learners and to talk about how you operated in the school. So I think that shows a really strong socio-spatial link. We haven't theorised it to anyone, like we haven't linked it to Lefebvre. We might take it to McGregor, but one of the reasons why we haven't done that is because Te Ao Māori is the you know, almost the theoretical framework of this work. So we didn't want to box it. Does that answer the question, Leo?
Okay. Can't see a Leon thumbs up, but thank you.
Okay, next question.
Are there any other questions coming through?
Joe's question.
Joe's questions. Have you published your research yet? And if so, can you please hurry up?
Well, our research has been rejected from 2 journals so far in the last little while, and as you know, that's a common journey on the way to publishing. But we have this amazing opportunity at the moment. University of Waikato is producing a book around innovative learning environments, and we have had our work accepted as a chapter along with Leanna's work as well. So that will be coming out. When is that? Is it December-ish? Early next year?
Probably the year, next year.
Yeah.
We Aroha tino nui, Maurice, whoop whoop. This is not a question, it's a mihi.
Kia ora, Claire.
Are there any other questions that are going to trip me up with spell check? I actually thought, I was thinking, what on earth is cyan? I thought it was a new term.
Poor
I didn't know.
Do with plant sites.
Are there other questions? We've got time for one more, I think, before we go.
But Emily, you and Maurice are happy for folks to contact you directly if they have questions after this as well, yeah? And that you're happy to make your slides available. Yeah, so we can pop that onto the Learning Environments website as well, together with the recording.
Is there anything else you want to add while we're waiting for a question? Or see if there's any more?
No?
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, thank you so much, Emily and Maurice, for your fascinating study. We are really touched that you've spoken so passionately about it, and it's really a very rich sharing for us as well to learn from you. So thank you very much for your time. So if you can just join us for another virtual clap, our second set of speakers. Yeah, thank you for doing that. Yeah, we see couple of claps
People are so
popping up. Thank you so much for doing that. And so we just once again want to say a big thank you to both sets of speakers, to Leeana as well as to Emily and Maurice for your time this afternoon. It has really enriched our learning environment, scholarly community and practitioner community as well. So do get in touch with the speakers if you've got questions after this, but we will let you know once the recording is available for you to share with your networks as well.
And thank you for your attendance all.
Yeah, we're really
It's great to get together, even virtually.
yes. Yeah. So thank you once again, everyone, for coming. Kia ora. Bye-bye.
Bye.